Good afternoon. This is the Performance Scrutiny Committee. It's Wednesday, the 6th of October, 5 o'clock. So I welcome you all. Before the meeting starts, I need to say the following. This Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with the coronavirus regulations and the remote meetings protocol agreed by the Council, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. I would remind members that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. Can I request that you all switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise and to help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The Council standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Can I also remind members to ensure their chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so. And remember to unmute your microphones and switch your cameras on. So there we go, we've read that. So okay, if we go straight into the agenda. First of all, any apologies? Neil, any apologies?
Councillors Tom Suller and Malcolm Linton, Chair. Okay,
that's fantastic, that's noted. So any declarations of interests? No, okay. So we've got item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on July the 28th, which seems like an age ago, pages 3 to 14. Obviously, who did attend, can you approve them? Are we happy with with the minutes?
Approved, Chair.
Lovely. Okay. So we're on item 4 already. Okay, so which is really the crux of the meeting today. It's the Public Service Board Wellbeing Plan Annual Report 2020 to 2021. And if I can now pass it over to the leader, who I believe will be doing the introductions. I think the format, what we're going to look at, is the leader's going to do the introductions and go through a few of the points, and then we're going to go through, or we're going to have speakers for each objective, and then we'll ask questions at the end of it, if that's okay, leader. And so over to yourself.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, colleagues. Thank you for inviting us along here today. I'm really proud as the Chair of the One Newport Public Service Board to introduce to you our 3rd annual report on the progress that has been made by the One Newport Partnership during 2019-20. We've delivered a range of projects, often in very difficult and challenging circumstances, which typify our shared purpose, our close collaboration, and focus on achieving long-term improvements in the well-being of our communities. I have to emphasise, Chair, that this is very much partnership work in action, and we're very, very proud of some of the achievements that we'll be sharing with you today. The examples of the work demonstrate our understanding that wellbeing is multidimensional. It needs an integrated approach and depends on us working as a team, which promotes the involvement of our communities. Now, in undertaking our interventions and delivering on the wellbeing objectives, we've applied a social capital approach across our work programme, focusing on what's strong rather than what's wrong. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown the One Newport partners that we've tremendous capacity, potential and resilience within our communities. There are numerous examples of citizens coming forward, working together and making a difference to people's lives, and we are seeking to sustain and support this. This year, we've reviewed our objectives and interventions during the year in light of the impacts of COVID-19 to make sure that we're able to respond to changing circumstances. As a part of that, Chair, we've adopted a new vision for the plan, which is that we want Newport to be a proud and friendly city where people and places thrive now and in the future. All of our activity seeks to deliver this, and we feel that we've demonstrated that vision in the case studies in the report. We do recognise that we're still in very challenging times for our communities, businesses and public services, and we're committed to providing the leadership to support communities, promote recovery and improve well-being. As a partnership, we're listening to local people and are mindful that the action we take now must bring about the best possible outcomes for the years ahead. You'll be aware, of course, of the formation of a new Public Service Board for Gwent. This will create new opportunities for regional cooperation, streamlined governance and strategic planning. However, One Newport will continue as a strong local delivery partnership, continuing to deliver our wellbeing plan and look for new opportunities to collaborate in the interest of our communities. We'll also be represented on the Gwent PSB and will ensure that Newport receives the focus and unique consideration it warrants as the region's city. Finally, we're encouraging wide distribution of our annual report as we feel very positive about the many exciting things happening in our city through partners working together and with local communities. And if I may, Chair, as we go into this, just remind colleagues of the 4 objectives that we are seeking to achieve in terms of meeting the wellbeing objectives. The wellbeing objectives are that everyone feels good about living, working, visiting and investing in our unique city. That everyone has the skills and opportunities they need to develop, prosper and contribute to a thriving, sustainable city. That everyone belongs to a resilient, friendly, connected community and feels confident and empowered to improve their well-being. And that Newport has healthy, safe and resilient environments with an integrated, sustainable travel network. There are wellbeing objectives, Chair, and throughout the report there are a number of examples and case studies of where we've sought to deliver against these wellbeing objectives. I'm delighted to be joined by a number of colleagues from the partnership, all of whom have had a high level of involvement in delivering against these objectives and working on these case studies. And if committee are content, Chair, we'll just highlight some of these case studies for you as we start the process this evening. Are you happy?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Chair, the Chief Executive of the City Council and I have been taking the lead on the Newport offer intervention aspect of the One Newport plan, and within this, obviously, Chair, there are a range of interventions that have taken place, and we've got a range of successful case studies that we'd like to share with you today, and I'll certainly highlight a few, and I know the Chief Executive would like to come in and talk about some of this as well. Whilst I mentioned previously that the Newport offer is very much part of this, this is not just about Newport City Council and the work of the City Council, it's very much about partnership work. And I'm really proud to share with you some of the interventions that have been undertaken. For example, you might have seen the efforts that have gone into green in the city centre, and this is an important part of the work, the partnership work that we're doing, particularly in partnership with Natural Resources Wales, really helping to improve the environment for everybody. I'll leave the Chief Executive to talk about the considerable interventions in terms of regeneration in the city centre, but in addition to this, we're also very proud to share with colleagues that we've achieved purple flag status for our city centre, and this is so important in supporting a thriving evening and nighttime economy, both in the short and the long term, Chair. So we're really proud with that achievement there. And looking ahead to the future, we're proud that that will give people confidence to come and enjoy the hospitality industry within the city centre, and also, Chair, to form part of that economic recovery that will come from that. Now, there is something additional that we highlight in the report. We highlight it as part of our plans for the future, but I would like to raise it just briefly with colleagues, and that's very much our collaboration with colleagues across Gwent on our submission of an expression of interest for Newport to become part of the competition to become the City of Culture 2025. This is very much about culture-led regeneration, and I have to say, Chair, that whatever the outcome of this bid, it has been such a privilege to have the support of so many of our creative community in the cultural industry here in the region, that this will give us a really strong platform to go on and deliver initiatives that will continue to deliver on these objectives. So I think, Chair, if I may, I'd introduce the Chief Executive, who would like to talk about some of the regeneration interventions that help deliver on this objective.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Okay, Chair?
Yeah, all fine.
Can you hear me? That's okay. And again, thanks, Leader. Almost quite similar, actually, to the Council's annual report. You know, when I read through and have contributed, as officers have, to the development of the annual wellbeing report, I think, you know, the leader's words that she used about being, you know, concentrating on the strong, not the wrong, is absolutely pivotal to the way that the PSB has worked over the course of the last year. The strength in our partnership arrangements, I think, you know, the annual report was actually testament to the way that we've all worked together. So the leader touched upon the Purple Flag Award. You know, also you'll see within the annual report reference to our Newport's commitment to the Placemaking Wales Charter, all very much, you know, important sort of backdrops for the way we deliver. So in terms of some of the achievements against the interventions and the steps of the wellbeing plan, you know, I won't go through each and every project in detail because they are numerous, and you know, and quite a lot of progress has been made, certainly since the wellbeing plan was developed. And also I think this year, and I think it's important to still remember that that's been delivered in the face of a global pandemic, and partners have continued to work together to, you know, to maintain progress as best we can. So just a kind of quick rundown from the top. Obviously, we've got the Chartist Tower development, which continues to progress, albeit curtailed by the pandemic, but very much a part of our efforts to work with the International Convention Centre Wales. You know, as the ICC was being developed, we were heavily engaged with partners at ICC and Welsh Government in terms of the need for more bed space within the city centre. And I think once Chartist Tower, you know, is finally delivered, obviously that'll offer much needed support for the ICC's provision. Market Arcade, I'm also pleased to say, is progressing well, and actually it's one, you know, I'm sure that the leader of the City Council and myself are also personally proud of. I can remember walking through that particular arcade just 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, it being quite a challenging state. So to see that come into fruition, you know, will be a real achievement for both council, obviously, and for our partners, particularly in Heritage Lottery Fund and Welsh Government, who are working alongside us closely. Adjacent to that, we have the indoor market, which is due for completion the winter of 2021 to early 2022, and again, good to see that progressing well. Mill Street, which is, you know, very much a different project in terms of its you know, its image within the sort of the landscape of Newport City Centre, but you know, much needed office space in quite an industrial look and feel. We also have Tramshed Tech, who, you know, everybody will be well aware that, you know, one of Wales's more sort of impressive incubation enterprises will be coming into the city centre shortly too. From an environmental perspective and connectivity, we have the Devon Place footbridge, which will be going into place on Christmas Day this year, fingers crossed. So there'll be probably a number of officers will be sitting with bated breath whilst eating their Christmas lunch, Chair. So, you know, the report also talks to some of our housing development, Central View, which I think have been quite transformative in terms of lower Commercial Street. And again, we've done a lot of work with partners in terms of applications to transforming towns for external funding opportunities brought into the city centre. Looking forward to the future, again, quite a lot of ambitious programmes underway. The new leisure provision and Newport Knowledge Quarter, which obviously we are working on with Coleg Gwent, which will be their new building within the city centre and University of South Wales. So very exciting projects which will bring in somewhere in the region of 110 to 120 million pounds of investment into the city centre over the next few years. The leaders already mentioned City of Culture, and hopefully we'll be hearing an announcement very shortly in terms of where we've reached. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that we get through to the next stage. And linked to that, it is about the city continuing to develop its strategic events programme. We have the Newport Wales Marathon again at the end of this month, and I'm sure that that's become a regular event in the calendar. And what we hope to do is expand that programme as part of our broader cultural offer. And sort of concluding with the cultural offer, the Transporter Bridge, that's something else which we were successful in receiving money from, again, HLF, quite a significant award. And I suppose then, just to conclude, Chair, it is the work of the Public Service Board. We could not have done this without our partners, who will be presenting on the other interventions shortly. But it's not just about the PSB. It's also about the Business Improvement District, Newport Now, the Newport Economic Network. It's about Safer Newport and all of those strong relationships that we've forged across the range of partners that work so hard to keep the city moving forward. So hopefully that's just given you a flavour of what the annual report contains in more detail. But as we move forward, happy to answer any questions, Chair, alongside the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. So are we now moving on, or are we doing questions now? What I think, Leader, you wanted to go on to others, didn't you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If we may, I know we've got a number of colleagues on the call, and I think it's really important, as it's a partnership, that there's an opportunity for our colleagues to highlight some of the great work that's been done across the partnership. I know that both Guy and Will are here, and I'm sure that they'd like to highlight some case studies from the second objective that I outlined there for you.
Fine, yeah.
Okay, Chair. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah,
Hi,
absolutely. Hi, Guy.
Thank you. If it's okay, Chair, if I kick off, and then I think I'm going to ask Will to just say a few words at the end of this section, and just to let members of the committee know that I chair the Right Skills Group. So this particular intervention about ensuring that people have the skills, the opportunities that they need to develop, prosper and contribute to a thriving, sustainable city has been the focus of the Right Skills Group's work as a subcommittee of the overall PSB. There's been lots and lots of good work. It's been my privilege to chair that group and work with partners from across a very wide range of organisations, and in particular the annual report highlights the success of our Discovering Digital Careers event, which I have to say was an amazing event. It was targeted primarily at Year 9s, but also was attended by other school children in the city. And it was a fantastic event which brought together a wide range of partners, delivering information about a wide range of STEM-related careers, which obviously from an employment point of view and a regeneration point of view is a key sector. I'd also highlight the work that's been undertaken to reduce NEETs in the city through the Youth Engagement and Progression Framework. That's a coming together of a number of partners, with people working to support young people to engage in education and training, particularly beyond the age of 16, with the specific target of reducing those who are not engaged. And that involves a number of interventions, but particularly it focuses on the tracking of young people and ensuring that their transition is supported so that they have positive outcomes. And the work of the school learning coaches and the work of those who are providing alternative learning for young people after the end of compulsory education has led to a situation in which we've successfully reduced the number of needs. Also, the group's been very pleased to have set up a Film Cymru project, which again was about promoting careers in film and TV. That was a fantastic small pilot project, but we have, off the back of that, have submitted a bid to the UK Government Community Renewal Fund. So we're hoping that we're going to be able to extend that work in due course and run a full 6-month programme. And then finally, I'd like to just highlight the work that we've been doing amongst refugees and asylum seekers in the city. We've been running the Reach Restart project as a collaborative programme, which has been based out of the Newport Central Library and is primarily about offering people advice and guidance and a variety of wraparound services to make sure that they can access the help that they need, which is all built on the back of providing structured learning programmes as English for speakers of other languages. So there's been some magnificent work in there, but I'm also going to ask Will if he'd like to say a little bit about the early years integration transformation programme. So Will, over to you.
Thank you, Guy. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. So just before we talk about this specific case study, just wanted to mention a couple of things which isn't in the report, but I think the most important thing to note here is that the foundations for almost every aspect of human development are laid down in the early years. So it's an absolute critical stage, particularly in the first 1,000 days. So it's really important that we ensure that every child in Newport has the best start in life. There's a huge amount of neurodevelopment that happens at that stage. And, you know, if we're exposing children to adverse childhood experiences at that point, it does massively affect their long-term outcomes. So this is, out of everything in the plan, an absolutely crucial area that we need to be focusing on for future generations. And we're going to talk specifically about a case study that's been running in Betis. There's actually 2 kind of complementary programs that have been running in Betis, but the things that unify them, I suppose, are that there's a bigger focus on prevention. There's a big focus on integrating the support that families in that community receive, and crucially that families are feeling involved and they're feeling empowered through the process. So they're not sort of passive recipients of services there. They've got agency, they're actively involved in the support they receive. So the first case study is the Early Years Pathfinder. So this is about much better communication between all the different services, from the antenatal stage right through those critical early years up to age 5. And what the team have tried to do there in Betis is to break down some of the barriers, you know, the turgid referral criteria between the different agencies, to break down some of the constraints with the different funding streams. We've got situations like with Flying Start, for example, where services are tied to specific geographical areas. So the idea behind this Pathfinder is to develop a much more seamless and integrated level of support for families, so to get the right support at the right time. They're not just provided with the services that are on offer, it's very much tailored towards their individual needs. So there's an operational group that's been set up to bring all those different agencies together, and they're constantly sort of feeding this learning into the development of this early years pathway. As I said, families have been involved throughout the process, and I'm going to read out some of the things that they've said. So the first thing is about continuity, so the ability to work with someone who's actually going to be in it for the long haul. That continuity of support is really important, so having that trusted relationship. The focus on what matters to the family, not just being offered a pick list of services that are on offer, actually focusing on the things that are relevant and that matter to the family. Families have said the importance of being listened to and feeling in control about decisions that are being made. They've said having a key worker that can help them bypass some of the unnecessary steps in the process and some of the bureaucracy that often exists. so they get the right support as quickly as possible, and also having information so they feel empowered and they can make informed choices about their future. So those are some of the things that we've had fed back. Obviously, some families will have more specialist needs. So the team there in Bettis have been trying to expedite access to some of the more specialist services like CAMS, so that the families will go through the SPACE, which is the single point of access for people with or families with children that have got psychological and emotional needs, as well as the iScan sort of single point of access for children with special and additional needs. So that's the first program, and then the complementary program to that's been running alongside this in Bettis is the early learning community, which is funded by Save the Children, but it's more of a whole community approach. So it's really looking at what are the conditions that affect people's well-being in the whole community. So they've looked at things like digital exclusion, successful transition for families between each of the key kind of life stages. They've looked at improving access to play opportunities that we know are really important for children's sort of physical and social development, their language acquisition, language skills and so on. So that sort of whole community approach funded by Save the Children has been running along this early years pathfinder, which is trying to make sure the support is really seamless for families. And we're hoping that now will be a blueprint for other areas in Newport, not just Bettis. So that's where we've got to with that one, Chair.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Guy. Thank you for that report. Very clear. And what we'll do now, we'll come back to you. We'll listen to the other object, and then we'll come back to you for any questions, if that's okay. Thank you for your time. So now we go on to, is it the third objective? Who would be presenting that? Is it Nicola?
Yeah, afternoon, Chair. And my name is Nicola Bragodic. I'm the Director of Planning, Digital IT at St Iron Bevan University Health Board. I jointly chair the Strong Resilient Communities Intervention Group with the South Wales Police. And Harriet is also Harriet Bleach is going to pick up on some of the green spaces under this third objective, which was very much around everyone belonging to resilient, friendly, connected communities and feel confident and empowered to improve their well-being. So the area I wanted to pick up that we've been overseeing through our intervention board was around the participatory budgeting project. This was a really a great project where the health board, working with Newport City Council in partnership with a company called Mutual Gain, some external consultants who are experienced in community engagement, where we used £100,000 of health board funding for prevention to engage with the communities and ask them to put a bid in for grassroots community type projects that really looked at how we could have an impact on COVID recovery and reduce inequalities across the communities. There was a huge interest that took place. 83 projects were put forward altogether by the communities. We did an online voting programme where there was 400 residents attended and took part in the voting. So it by itself was a huge way of bringing the communities together. And of the 83 projects, we were successful in awarding 24 projects with funding that ranged between £1,000 and £10,000. And we're also looking at the projects that weren't successful to see what other opportunities may exist for us to support those if they met some of the criteria. I think it's probably, they range, when you look at the projects that were successful, they range from youth projects, carer groups, a lot on digital inclusion, arts, cooking, there's wellbeing groups, family-based groups, and those looking at particularly ethnic minorities. So a really broad-ranging, range of community projects. And I think what we've already seen in the early days is a real build-up of enthusiasm amongst communities and really starting to think about what type of things they want to see on offer in these local communities. And we've done some work previously targeting areas like Ringland and Pill, where we've done this on a smaller scale. So we took that learning. We've also done some work recently through the Health Board looking at doing surveys with our communities around wellbeing and levels of mental distress, especially in the context of the pandemic. And some of the key factors that come out that have got correlations to the incidence of mental distress is where there's hope, where there's good social connection and good personal resilience, we see lower incidence of mental distress. And you can already see the opportunities that this participatory budgeted programme can bring in terms of giving communities those three particular factors. So that's what I was going to mention on the participatory budget, and we will be following this up in terms of impact. We started to do videos of some of those projects, but we will look to see how we can roll this out further as we kind of understand its success. So I'm going to ask Harriet to come in now to pick up on some of the green spaces work we've done under this particular objective. Thank you.
Hi Nick. Chair, if it's okay, if I could give, sorry Nick, if I could pick it up, Chair, and then maybe we can use Harriet then for when you present some questions to have a deeper dive into some of the areas really, because I think some of the case studies are identified already in the paper. So really from a brevity perspective, what I'd like to say is I think that the one thing that we have learned throughout COVID is that we value our open and green spaces even more. So how we do maximise that going forward, and I think that the paper and the examples which are in there are there for yourself and members to be familiar with. I'm sure you have. There are a couple which I would like to draw out really from the outset. I think that the work that have been done with the veterans through the Newport Veterans Hub as well, around creating an allotment facility for veterans to utilise for their health and well-being, and we're looking to expand that where possible. They're building on the existing volunteering that we have. The discussions with Garvo are ongoing as well. And also the ambition to utilise our green spaces from a social prescribing perspective. And we're watching with interest from the pilot that's going on in Caerphilly. And hopefully we'll be able to learn from that, and discussions with GP practices have already gone on within the Newport area as well, to ensure that we can learn those lessons and use our green space for the health and well-being of all the citizens of Newport as well. Really big thank you from myself to Harriet and to Natural Resources Wales that continues to fund the work that we've been able to do, and Harriet's been able to grow our green network to about 130 participants on that network as well, which are really active on the days which we can have, which has regrettably been impacted by COVID. But I know the team are working hard with newsletters and updates and look to get as much as we can onto a digital platform while we're restricted in face-to-face meetings as well. So I think, Chair, if I could, that gives an overview. I think that the paper really comprehensively describes some of the other things that we've been going on around planters and rainfall, etc., as well. And happy to take any questions when we get to that stage. Thank you.
Hugh, thank you for that. Absolutely, thank you. Okay, so then if we move on now to the final objective, and then the questions will come in, which is Newport having healthy, safe, and resilient environments. Who's going to lead on that?
I think, Chair, possibly Harriet might give a overview of that. Unfortunately, Craig couldn't make it today.
I think, Leader, I think I was going to pick up the one bit if I could from that. Sorry, I should have rolled it all into one. Sorry, Chair. Apologies. You'll see also within the paper as well what is important, that when we do utilise and maximise the green spaces that we've got, that people do feel safe and secure in doing that. So there's a data mapping exercise that's going on between Newport City Council, Gwent Police, ourselves, and Fly Tipping Wales as well, getting an overview of the disturbances that we might be getting around antisocial behaviour in the green spaces that might be prevented citizens from accessing them and feeling safe. So the data mapping exercise is going on, looking at fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, deliberate fire setting, so we can target resources to where it's appropriate. So that data map is going on, and also through the Joint Emergency Services Group, the Chief Constable of Gwent Police has been leading on a violence against emergency workers campaign as well, and we've been data mapping that as well. So the opportunity will be there to overlay where we get attacks on emergency service workers in our communities into this piece of work in time to come as well. Thank you.
Hugh, thank you for that again. Thank you for picking that up as well. Much appreciated. Okay, so I believe we've gone through all the objectives. So it's a committee. If you can put your hands up so I can see them, and let's ask some questions. Let's have a look to see who's first. Councillor Mogford, far away.
Thank you, Chair. Just putting my camera on. Yep, it's working. Looking through the report, the word sustainable is used 65 times, which is good. My question is I suppose challenging sustainability. It's always a challenge. With regards to sustainable transport, I think there's a huge problem there. For example, for people to be able to get around the city and to enjoy aspects of the city, we want to push away from using cars, it's been stated. I see the new FlexiBus initiative is it's up and running. I think the leader said the other day there were 9 FlexiBuses operating in Newport. So a couple of things on that. The whole of Newport is not covered by the FlexiBus service, so that's a disadvantage for people who would like to get around but can't, because it certainly cuts off in my ward, halfway through the ward. And I've noted when I see these FlexiBuses that there may be people on them or there may not be, but usually there's no more than 1 or 2 people I see on them. So this doesn't seem very efficient and effective. Can anybody comment about that?
Thank you, Councillor Mogford. Who'd like to come in on that?
Nobody.
No, we've got Councillor Mogford. Just a quick one, Councillor Mogford. Did you say you had your camera on?
I must have toggled it twice. Sorry.
All right,
I noticed it was on, but it was just on for a second. There I am. Yeah,
that's fine. Because I know you were having technical issues getting in, so I just want to
make
sure.
Getting in. Yeah, I think now I'm in. It's working fine. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We've got leader and chief executive. Yeah, I've got your Councillor Mogford. Can see you.
Oh, you can't now. I've just turned it off. So it's back on again. Do
Back
you
on.
want me to keep the camera on or off, Chair?
I'll tell you, Councillor Mogford, for your question, put it on.
I'll leave it on. Thank you.
There we go. Right.
Thank you, Chair. Just in response to Councillor Mogford's question, we're actually here today to report on the plan that's in front of us, and partners have made their time available to take questions on the plan and the activity of the plan specifically, not any Newport City Council specific initiative. So this is very much about partnership working. Now, in terms of the interventions that we've experienced through the plan, there are a range of interventions around sustainability, active travel, and clean air that will really help benefit citizens of Newport. We participated in Clean Air Day, and we were able, with our partners again, to showcase how collectively across the public sector we're looking at interventions that can actually help enhance the lives of citizens here in Newport. So we looked at our cycling routes, our active travel routes. We were also able to demonstrate some of the transport interventions across the Cardiff capital region, for example, electric taxi vehicles, electric buses, and also partner organisations were there and able to share and promote where they were converting part of their fleets to electric vehicles as well. So there is quite a significant investment in sustainability across the whole of the partnership, because we recognise that this is really important longer term going forwards, as well as activities such as engaging in Clean Air Day. We'll also be looking to introduce across the partnership on cycle hire, and of course we are developing that green infrastructure map, which is all important in terms of demonstrating to people how they can access sustainable green space as well. Chair, I'm sure the Chief Executive would like to add to this, and I know that Harriet probably would like to come in and add to some examples as well.
Thank you, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Mogford, thank you for your questions. The Leader said, you know, the sort of the focus for this evening's debate is around the plan. But there is an awful lot ongoing. I think if you read through each of the sort of interventions and the achievements throughout that, they range from everything from biodiversity through to sustainability in its broader sense, around levelling up the qualities as well and giving you know, access to opportunities across the city. Sustainability is part of, you know, it's an integral part of the future generations aims, which I think hopefully committee would agree that through the achievements against each of the interventions, it is one of the golden threads that the Public Service Board has tried to achieve, you know, ever since the plan was set up, and particularly this year. And I think it's something the partners have worked really hard to integrate. You know, happy outside of this conversation to have, you know, a further debate on the point you raised. That's no problem at all, and perhaps we can pick that up separately, Chair. Is that okay, Ray?
Yes,
yeah,
fine.
thank you. I think everything has to be joined up. And as you say, if this is not a specific focus of the report, it is an integral challenge.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mogford. Any other question, Councillor Mogford, or are you all right for the moment?
I'll be back.
Okay. And just to clarify, the documentation we've got here, you know, one of the areas is it's the committee should be considering how effective the partnership is working towards achieving the objectives, rather than look at individual partners. So moving on from that, Councillor Spencer, you're next.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. It's good to see a section in there about the Newport Armed Forces Forum and the good work that the council have been doing with the Newport Veterans Hub, and it was good to hear Hugh bring that up. I'd just like to say, because I have brought this up, that not enough has been mentioned in any packs that we scrutinised over the last couple of years. So it is good to see it, and there is still work that needs to be done with the veterans. And I don't just mean the armed forces, we do have other emergency services as well, and they should all come under this forum. So I'd just like to say well done, and let's please keep up the good work with the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Marshall, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. So I normally like commenting basically about the partnership itself, as members are probably aware of this by now. My first question relates to the third paragraph on page 86 or 64 on the actual plan itself. I'll read off the bit of it. In June 2019, the PSB agreed to undertake a new evaluation exercise. It goes on to basically saying that we are performing well against most of the indicators. It's just the terminology of well and about how the partnership sees that they're working together. If you were in a school classroom and you had to give yourselves a kind of number out of 10, what would you give yourselves, and what kind of notes would you provide to go along with that?
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Very open question there. Who'd like to come in on that?
I think that's a really interesting point, Chair, and I'm sure that all of our colleagues on the partnership would have a view on that. I'm not necessarily sure about marks out of 10 in terms of progress, although we do rate our progress against our interventions with a RAG rating. So we do. I think that overall we've consolidated as a partnership, and we are just starting improvements for the lives of citizens, as many of the examples demonstrate. Partners would like to comment on that question as
well. Thanks, Chair. So I would say, you know, just thinking about my own school reports, you know, doing well but could do better. I think one of the things we're trying not to be as a partnership is complacent. So we want to be constantly improving and doing better. In terms of sort of more objective measures, we have got the Thriving Places Index, which allows us to rank Newport compared not just to other local authorities in Wales, but other local authorities across the UK. And there are different domains within that index, and that allows us to have a specific focus on areas that affect people's well-being within the city. So I would say that there's probably 2 points there. Firstly, I think as a partnership, we're not complacent. We're always trying to improve and do better, and really, ensure that those 5 ways are working at the heart of everything we do. And then if we're looking at more objective measures, we have got that Thriving Places Index that allows us to focus on those different domains of well-being within the city, and that allows us to rank our position compared to other parts of the UK.
Thank you, Will. Councillor Marshall, did you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. So it's mainly a question similar to what I asked, I believe, in one of the last meetings about basically how the partnership board actually evaluates itself in meetings. Again, it showcases that they undertaking exercises every 2 years about the self-reflection and self-evaluation. Do you feel that that is sufficient, or do you feel that maybe things can be brought forward to a more regular basis, just like a health check on a more regular basis, along that, just making sure that things are progressively changing, and whether or not that you're challenging each other as well as challenging new ideas as part of the process and part of the plans? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Who'd like to come in on that? Have we got Guy?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and Councillor Marshall, I don't know if this helps, but if I give you an example of the subgroup I chair, the Right Skills Group, one of the things we routinely do in every meeting is look at our work plan and ask partners to contribute updates and reflect on progress. So I think there is challenge there, but there's also an acknowledgement that we're asking people across a huge range of different organisations to contribute time for a joint purpose. But we do challenge and we do debate about whether or not we could do things better. And as someone who's chairing a subgroup that brings together numerous different representatives from different organisations, there is a lot of cajoling and a lot of encouragement, but there is also that underlying challenge and reflection on what we do on an ongoing basis. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I hope that gives some reassurance that partners are evaluating and are talking to each other about performance and how we do things.
Thank you, Guy. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that's basically different from what the report is kind of mentioning about the fact of every 2 years as the partnership board as a whole. But it's nice to hear that individual groups or the interventions are looking at that in detail along with partners as well, and making sure that they are undertaking the various tasks, but also looking at themselves as part of that partnership there. So it's good to hear. Thank you.
Will, did you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Just to say that, the last 18 months has been obviously particularly challenging in terms of the pandemic response, but it has, left us with probably an opportunity to think about where we go next as a partnership in terms of pandemic recovery. And I think what the pandemic has made us all realise is the things that really matter to people, the things that are important in life, and it is about people's well-being. So although we've all had our own pressures responding to the pandemic, a huge amount has been achieved, I think, through the PSB, which is reflected in the annual report. But I think probably now is the point to regroup and think about what opportunities may exist as we move into sort of the recovery phase, although it doesn't feel like we're quite there yet. But so I think it's probably now is the time to take stock.
Thank you, Will. Nicola.
Yeah, just some reflections on that question, and obviously I've sat on the PSB since its inception, and I have personally been involved in a number of self-evaluations that we've done as a board and a committee to ensure are we being effective and we've adapted our business really on the back of that evaluation. So we have been doing that evaluation. We haven't done one recently during the pandemic, and probably would be do one fairly soon, recognising things are changing. And from a personal experience, there is no doubt that we have now made connections across partners that we didn't have before. I think Will's point is there's always more we can do, there's always better ways, but I think we've now got connections which really benefited us when we entered the pandemic and we came together as the various levels of groups where we already have these relationships more strongly formed. So there's always more we can do, and I agree there's definitely lots more opportunity, but I think we've got the foundations of partnerships which is reflected in the report that we definitely didn't have before.
Thank you, Nicola. Leila.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add, in terms of how do we know that we're being effective, and how do we actually learn from that, as well as undertaking self-evaluation, we did actually develop a board development action plan, and a number of actions in that plan we've actually taken forward. And actually one of those was to invite yourself as the chair of the Scrutiny Committee to attend the meetings of the PSB as an observer, just to make sure that we've got that golden thread and that connectivity back in. So I think that's been really successful, and something that's coming forward, which again I think highlights that and highlights our willingness actually to be scrutinised and to get that feedback. And again, another action of our development plan was to actually set up some challenge the partnership sessions, and the first of these, again, I'm pleased to say that you've agreed to chair the first of these sessions, and that will be with the Newport Youth Council. And as a partnership, we're really proud to be engaging in this sort of activity, because not only does that help us with our own development, it also helps us in terms of evaluating our progress, but recognising that we're reaching groups of people who are really important. I know Will highlighted the importance of early childhood and early childhood development, but it's really important in terms of engagement and ways of working, especially as they're embedded in the Future Generations legislation, that we do engage with young people in this way. So they're just two examples, Chair, of how we're also working on this collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I think it was something that William Beer started actually mentioning on to, which actually made my clogs work a little bit more. So basically, looking at COVID and about COVID recovery, just interested to hear what the panel says, whether or not they feel that the differences of working has made it more efficient in their delivery. Has it been a challenge to the delivery? What are the lessons learned? What has being effective within the partnerships? Has there been a little bit of tension because of the fact they can't meet face to face, or what is the kind of feeling amongst the panel, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Who'd like to come in?
I mean, I've been deployed to the COVID-19 Incident Coordinating Centre since February, so I think one of the things for me is that with the development of Test, Trace and Protect, not just in Newport but across Gwent, and with the mass vaccination programme, it really shows what you can achieve if there's political commitment, and cross-governmental support, where you've got a kind of unified objective, you've got a fully engaged and involved public, and you've got a programme that is fully resourced. So and we've been able to use advances in digital technology as well to support the response. So I think there's a huge amount of learning, I think, around the pandemic about if you've got those conditions right, you can really achieve quite significant outcomes in a relatively short space of time. So I think there's probably some learning to take from that as we look at other issues like child poverty, like climate change, some of those other really important issues. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Will. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, Chair, I've got a question. Sorry, put my camera on as well. Thank you very much for that, Will. And it's always positive to hear, about the workings and things, and it's expected that you guys are doing that as well. My next point is in relation to, it's not quite on this, but where you see yourselves moving in the future as a partnership. So obviously we've got the regional side of things that is occurring. We've got the Newport side of things there, about basically where you see yourselves moving forward together closer, and if maybe you can consider things working together like around like fuel poverty, for example, where maybe the RSLs collectively could look at things like that along with the council, looking at other partners, so looking at new projects or new challenges. Same could be said for the tourism, about the Newport offer. Great stuff is happening about investment being brought into the city. We've got the hotels, we've got the ICC, we've got the buildings, the market. Okay, there's a lot of good news stories you know, for Newport to be able to sell ourselves. But are we doing enough maybe to sell ourselves inside of maybe the tourism? Can we work with other people that, you know, some partners may have connections with to look at maybe walking tours of Newport, or, you know, looking at different new ways of challenging the way that the panel moves forward in the future? It'll be interesting just to hear if there's anything like that that anyone from the panel would like to mention, but also about how that strong panel that you seem to be can test yourselves or basically collectively do more for the benefit of citizens of our local area. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Councillor Marshall. Just to add to that, if I can jump on the back of that question, which I'm sure I can as a chair prerogative. Do you think, as a partnership, the message has got out there? We've just come out of COVID. Well, no, we don't come. We've just come and we're in COVID, but sort of we've come out of definitely a couple of tough years, but sort of we're still in it. But do you think that the positives, what we're reading, the message has got out there to the public? Sorry, who'd like to come in? Or was that yourself, Bev? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Marshall. I think, you know, if we sort of go back to my very, very brief run through of the plethora of projects, I think, and programmes that are ongoing in Newport, I think the Public Service Board is very aware that it cannot just be about, you know, a programme of project delivery. It has to be around which is what it says in the plan, the offer. And I think in terms of, in terms of marketing the city, there are for me, there's two aspects of that, and this is something we've discussed at length at the One Newport Partnership Board, and again at the Newport Now Board, the Business Improvement District, and also the NEN, is around how do we develop the narrative, an Indigenous narrative about Newport, so where, you know, we're all proud, those of us who live, work in the city. How do we make sure that we become proud? And that's more than about a marketing tool, isn't it? That's about, you know, the development of a sense of pride. Then there's the second aspect. And we've, you know, been talking to a range of businesses, SMEs, you know, through to some of our larger employers about how do we market ourselves then to the wider world. And again, that breaks down into another kind of two sub factors. One is, you know, for inward investment purposes, and clearly we have the Newport website, and then there's the other aspects, as Councillor Marshall said, around tourism. And we've got a rich cultural offer in Newport, and I think our aspirations around City of Culture are perhaps our first major pin in the map about Newport wanting to be more, wanting to be bigger, wanting to continue to grow. So certainly, Councillor Marshall, it's something that is on, you know, the partnership's radar. But I think taking on board the chair's points, this last 18 months has been really, really difficult to perhaps, you know, further the momentum that we'd gained prior to the pandemic. And we were, you know, we were doing an awful lot. As I said, we developed an events programme, got the website. It's now, okay, as we emerge from the pandemic, how do we now pick that momentum back up? But it is certainly something that's on One Newport's radar for the future.
Thank you, Bev. I believe, Hugh, you'd like to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just on the back of Bev there, really, I think the sense of pride is something certainly that as a PSB we've got to drive through Newport City Council's brand. I think it'd be hard to for the PSB to be able to do that and the reach, so as being able to work through the brand that people connect with, and I think that's through the Newport City. If we're looking at pride in Newport, you know, 130 volunteers in the green network. That speaks volumes, I think, and people wanting to embrace the climate, the biodiversity, and everything that Newport's got to offer. So that's good. And the vibrancy from that over COVID, where we've used digital platform and newsletters as well. Whilst we haven't been able to meet face to face, we've been able to embrace that technology to do that, and therefore probably embrace where we're trying to get with climate change around, you know, the fuel emissions and people travelling for meetings and the like as well. So reassurance that it's still what's gone on, and the connection of partnership working, and the connection outside of the PSB from residents, schools, etc. 130 people working on a green network to improve and embrace the biodiversity and green spaces that Newport has to offer as well.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. Last one from me before I shut up for a little bit. I think it was really good to mention about the city culture. I think, you know, the leaders mentioned it, Bev Owen has mentioned it, and about basically being bold and looking out there. And I think, you know, talking and seeing a lot of posts on Facebook, people like to sometimes downgrade the city, and it's nice to be able to see that, you know, that the pride that we have, we've got a good, you know, things in Newport, healthy city, about, you know, the kind of various runs that people do. We've got the various offers that, you know, economically, and it's good that the partnership is acting and looking boldly about how we can basically try and fight amongst the parapet. You know, we are a good city, we've got a lot to offer, and it's just about to get the kind of buy-in from the rest of the residents, so they too can take the pride, because it's one thing about having it on our doorstep, but it's the other thing of maybe the kind of thing like you might have the most, you know, luxurious beaches, and people are like, nah, you know, I want to go to Spain and stuff like that there, and other people will come in and they would absolutely really appreciate and really value. So it's about that buy-in from residents, but it's really glad to hear, as said, about fighting above that parapet. And I think that that's one thing that we should continue on doing as a partnership board, as a council, and you know, as citizens. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Hussain, I believe you'd like to come in.
Yes, it's more actually of a comment and not a you know, anything criticise or anything. I just wanted to actually say about the greening, all the green spaces that we've got in the area now, especially in my ward. We've got St Mary's garden, community garden. We've got Eveswell, Food for Life, and I just wanted to say that that is an absolute brilliant initiative where a lot of volunteers get involved, and you know, all of the workers from Greening Maindy. I just wanted to congratulate her on that, and that's something really positive, because there's a lot of diversity in my ward, and they all like to get involved in those issues. And I don't know for the mural in Maindy, they put all the scaffolding up, so hopefully we should have something nice and colourful to see there soon.
Lovely, thank you for that, Councillor Hussain. And I think sort of just adding on to that, I think sort of it is good to see. I think you are exactly what you said. I think it's really good to see. Would someone like to come back on what Councillor Hussain there about the green areas? Hugh and Harriet. I think you're on mute, Hugh.
Apologies, Chair, sorry. Yeah, I'm sure Harriet, just come on screen. So yeah, I'm sure Harriet can pick up some of Councillor Hussain's comments and observations there, particularly around the mural as well. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to say, yeah, Maindy Unlimited and Greening Maindy is great project. We hope that you know, they've got sort of 10 projects on the go at the same, you know, at once, and they're a brilliant example of you know, communities sort of working together and volunteering, and what can be done, you know, in terms of creating these sort of, you know, community gardens. So yeah, work with that group quite a lot, and there's obviously lots of other community projects, but I think, yeah, community is definitely key in that volunteering, in terms of that sustainable, keeping it going longer term as well. And they really do make a difference, those sorts of projects, definitely.
Thank you, Harriet. Councillor Hussain, are you happy with the reply?
Yes, I am. I just also wanted to mention the boat planter. If you go past there now, it's really lovely and colourful. Especially now with the days, you know, getting darker and drearier day by day. It's just really nice to see. Yeah, that's it.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Councillor Hussain. Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Marshall, Councillor. I'm going to go Councillor Spencer.
Excuse me, you took me by surprise, Chair. No, I'm just looking at the report, great report. I'd just like to comment on the regeneration of the city centre, and bringing in the living quarters and help for businesses with grants and whatever, which is really good, and it'd be great to see it going. It'd just be interesting to know what other projects we got come, and are there projects with electric parking points and more parking spaces if we're bringing people in to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Who would like to come in on that? Got Bev?
I'm happy to take that, Chair, if the leader's content for me to do so. So yes, Councillor Spencer, as you said, that there's a lot of achievements highlighted in the report, but there's a lot more, you know, in progress as well. You know, and I mentioned them earlier in the conversation around the leisure project, Newport Knowledge Quarter, etc. And I think, you know, as part of our wider future planning, of course, anything that we will endeavour to do will be as sustainable as possible. So, you know, we have seen the provision of electric charging points at some of our key public sector buildings and also within our car parks, etc. So, you know, there is a lot ongoing. Some of it's in very early stages, and I think, you know, any sort of regeneration work or infrastructure work does take a long time to come to fruition. So, you know, there's a lot of discussions ongoing currently, which hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years, you know, will actually be integrated into the city centre's future developments.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Thank you.
Just, Bev, can I keep you on there for a second? Again, Chair's prerogative. Just a quick question before I bring Councillor Marshall in. He may ask this fast, so I thought I'd better get a question in myself. Is there any fears on deadlines with the partnership, about the deadlines? We mentioned Devon Place, we mentioned the market, and as a partnership as a whole, is there any fears? Because again, they are good news stories, but also they can also turn. So I'm just wondering if there's any fears out there as a partnership of read these deadlines.
I think, you know, and I'd invite partnership colleagues to comment on it, because obviously you know, some of the regeneration projects are just one part of the picture. I think in terms of some of the key initiatives that myself and the leader highlighted, as always, there's always project risks. So, you know, I wouldn't want to be on record this evening as saying, yes, you know, everything's going to be absolutely fine. But at this point, the projects are on track for delivery. You know, and they're also on track for delivery in terms of, as I said, as sustainable as interventions as possible. So, yeah, in terms of risk, Chair, they're monitored regularly by the authority and reported back to the PSB as well. So I think, you know, from a risk management perspective, we're still on track to deliver those within the timeframes. I just also wanted to mention as well, come back to Councillor Spencer's point, but obviously we all partners are signed up. Can't get my words out. Sorry, signed up to the Sustainable Travel Charter. So, you know, we've launched that, and, you know, linking back to Clean Air Day, as the leader mentioned earlier, you know, I think all partners are now on a trajectory. We all realise what needs to be done. I know it's simple, it's always a challenge, but it's everyone's business, and, you know, it is something I think we're all working on very well together.
I see Will. Will, are you coming in?
Just very briefly, Chair, just on the point about development. So I think it's cited in the report, one of the achievements has been the development of supplementary planning guidance for sustainable travel. And whilst that is a responsibility for the council through the planning department, it was thrown open really for contributions from partners. So it was a great opportunity for me to think about, from a public health point of view, how, you know, that supplementary planning guidance could help us achieve certain public health outcomes. So, you know, even a responsibility that would ordinarily sit within the council, within the planning department, was thrown open to contributions from the different partners. So just wanted to cite that as an example.
That's fine. Thank you for that, Will. That's a good example. Thank you. Councillor Spencer, you happy with the replies?
Oh, great. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I've got Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm having issues with my laptop a second, so I've gone quickly onto my iPad. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you. So I've got two questions. The first one is just about information that we have generally. So we've talked about greening and we've talked about city centre regeneration. I'm just kind of interested in hopefully like the moving forward to becoming greening, carbon neutral, those statements. Do we have information about each of the properties in old places like the city centre itself? So all the properties would, you know, most likely require extra energy, for example, to heat the properties, to light the properties and things like that there. Even though not necessarily they'll be under the remit of council because they're not council properties, but do we know about them in order to be able to ask the partners whether or not there's ways and means that they can look at maybe providing grants with the partnerships or further partners moving forward? Is that a possibility there on that basis? And just the information gathering, like we've got the ward kind of property, things like that, you know, the different statistics that we have. And the other one in terms of greening is, I know it's mentioned probably about this time last year, just about the mentioning about local houses, like local residents, sorry, about being able to grow things in the houses. I know there was mention that there was possibilities to provide seeds and things like that there, to provide tips and things like that there, to provide greening. I'm just wondering, is there any movement forward? Because it's not actually gone out to residents from what I've personally seen. So it's just a clarification of an update. I'll ask my other question in a moment because it's a slight bit different from the Green side, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Anyone who'd like to come in on that? Thank you.
Chair, I'm just wondering if I could ask Harriet maybe to give an overview of the seeding and the schemes that have been running across Newport, particularly around the homegrown vegetables and the like.
Great. Harriet, could you do that?
Yeah, certainly. So we piloted a homegrown food kit just to give people a chance to kind of, you know, grow food at home. So we did that in Ringland, and we'll look to do that next spring, hopefully across all of the 4 hubs. So that's sort of in the planning. In terms of encouraging people to grow, you know, food at home or just generally green their own gardens or balconies, I've been doing some of that in terms of you know, finding resources and tips to do that, and sort of getting that out on my social media page, but also in the newsletter. But there could be more done, I think, in terms of promoting that wider and in different ways. So that's where we are in that regard.
Harriet, Bev, are you going to come in?
Yes, please. Just on the first question from Councillor Marshall, just to say that in terms of the data, you know, energy data collection and collation, that is work that is ongoing as part of the local area energy plan, which we've been piloting with Welsh Government, and which will now be rolled out across Wales. But we've been a pilot for over the last 6 months or so. So is it perfect data, Councillor Marshall? Probably not, but we're, you know, I would say we're ahead of the pack in terms of collecting information on the state of the stock, not just housing stock, buildings in general across Newport.
Thank you, Bev. Councillor Marshall. Oh, Council Leader.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow on from what Harriet was saying about the brilliant project supporting people to grow their own vegetables, and highlight, Chair, that Waste Savers have opened their centre in Maindy again. What's really important about that is people can borrow things, so they can actually borrow tools from that as well, which will support a lot of these initiatives. We've also got a reuse centre opening in the city centre, and in both of these places, what's really important, there's what we could describe as a library of things, and a library of things is very clear. People can go in and borrow these things, and it will really help them and support them in these activities. So it's not just about the provision of seeds and supporting people and developing that awareness. It also complements existing sustainability programmes around schemes such as the Library of Things. I just wanted to highlight that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you. So I'm just swapping back again to laptop again. I've got it back up and running. There we are. So the next question is mainly about the education side of things. So reading in the report, there was notes about like television productions and things like that there. And I think Guy Lacey also mentioned that on a brief kind of note earlier. You know, the one question I'd like to ask is it within the period of time using the kind of networks and partnerships, have they been able to link in role models to be able to link in with education? Is there apprenticeships that can link in with the curriculum? Same thing to be said in relation to green jobs. What skills have been identified, especially, you know, like what was identified prior to COVID and now during COVID and hopefully post-COVID, you know, very soon, that we in Newport need to kind of bring in and basically start training our young people and bringing them into as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Guy, I believe you're coming in on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's a very good question. I think one of the things that we look at very closely in terms of considering these skills issues is the way in which residents of Newport and people who work in Newport are really quite mobile. So we see a lot of people who come into the city for work. We see a lot of residents who leave the city for work. So it's a very mobile skills environment. There are certain key sectors which are growth sectors, which have the potential to offer long-term growth in numbers of jobs and long-term growth in high-value jobs, good jobs, and certainly around the sorts of jobs we see developing in the city in areas like advanced manufacturing and engineering. They have the potential to be real success stories in the longer term. We also have skills needs in areas such as health and care, and colleagues from the health sector would expect me to say this. When we look at the needs, for example, of the Iron Bevan University Health Board, we know that they have a very, very high number of vacancies and they find it very, very difficult to recruit. So in terms of how we steer our young people in particular, the sorts of interventions we put in place to flag up careers and promote careers in STEM areas is going to be followed next by a virtual careers event, which is going to be looking particularly at trying to encourage young people to consider careers in health and in care, because that really is a critical area where we need to support our health and care colleagues in terms of driving both young people and adults who are either returning to work or who are trying to upskill into those sectors. So a lot of work to do in that area, and in-work learning through vehicles such as apprenticeships is going to form a key part of that. But what I would say is all of that is been very much helped by the way in which the partners are now exchanging information and working together around those skills issues.
Thank you, Guy. Anyone else would like to come in? Councillor Marshall, are you happy with that? Councillor Marshall, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got a point and also a question after that I thought of as well. You probably know me by now. There we are. So basically, I was just looking also about that's the kind of older students or adults moving forward. Also just interested to know, because of again with the greening, obviously there's a foundation phase where young people experience the outdoor world. So they basically look at trees, they look at bugs, they look at, you know, bug hotels, they look at various other things like that there. It'd just be interesting to hear, you know, what type of partnership networking has been undertaken in order to coordinate a more effective and more not prosperous but more kind of beneficial education in relation to being in the outdoor world and about being new green citizens of the world.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Who'd like to come in on that? Got Harriet. I thought so. Harriet.
Hi there. I think with the Green and Safe Network, there's a strong partnership with Gwent Wildlife Trust to provide that sort of activity. Just, you know, been linking them with, for example, a children's community group in Pill to do that sort of outdoor activity. Keep Wells Tidy are a strong partner as well, and they do lots of similar activities as well. I think there's the countryside team in the council, as Luciana Matthews is the biodiversity and education officer, works a lot with schools. Lots of educating around, obviously biodiversity and that sort of thing. And I think there's plans for sort of carbon literacy training, which is about learning more about carbon and your carbon footprint and the actions you can take. So lots in the pipeline.
Thank you very much, Harriet. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, I think this is the last one for me. I believe I've not got any more clogs working in the background. The one is just again about the economic side of things, where it's great to obviously see a lot of the work that's been undertaken. COVID has obviously hit a lot of the kind of will or want to go to our city centres or town centres. So it's just the understanding that, okay, that we'll be attracting soon a mass amount of students, especially with the new city centre campus and the education quarter. It's just seeing about whether, has anything changed or what the thoughts are in relation to that post-COVID situation, about the economic power that the city centre holds, especially with people going into the city centre, and hopefully ideas or suggestions or the thoughts of moving away from the online world to bring them back into that real life experience, rather than just a couple of clicks of a computer and obviously awaiting the black or white van that comes to the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Who would like to come in on that? I believe Guy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that's a really good question about how will education and training develop as we move through the recovery phase from COVID. There clearly is a very great appetite amongst young people and young adults to get back to some sort of face-to-face training and education. Young people's experience of remote learning has been very variable. It doesn't suit all learners, and I think there is a real demand for learning and education as a social activity and a social exercise. I think the prospect of the Knowledge Quarter being able to draw people into the city centre is huge, and I think that the numbers of people whose prospects have been impacted by COVID, whether that's through furlough or whether that's through loss of employment, is going to be a really big challenge to us. And I think there are certain key sectors which we're going to have to support in terms of their recovery and in terms of providing people with the skills to work in those areas. So I think the integration of our education and training services across the city is an absolutely vital part of that. And I sincerely hope that the Knowledge Quarter project will be a major step in helping us sustain an ongoing regeneration of the city centre.
Thank you, Guy. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. Just the second part of the question, I don't know if it's Guy or someone else to answer, just about how we try and gain these people back from the online world, because obviously online purchasing power was quite strong, but obviously it's increased threefold during the COVID situation. So how are we looking to draw, and as partners looking to draw that back to get them back again functioning in the city centre and local communities and stuff, to make sure that the money hopefully can stay locally where it benefits all local residents a lot more than obviously a lot of the companies and things like that there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Who'd like to come in on that question? Bev.
I'm happy to, Chair. I think the first thing to say is that Newport isn't unique, and it's no different from any other city or town centre, and unfortunately there isn't a silver bullet for partners. There isn't. So what we have to do is try and through One Newport, establish what is Newport's USP, what are our what's the different offer that Newport has, and that can only come through our smaller independents, I think. And then it comes back to probably one of the first questions, which was around marketing and and growing that. So firstly, sustaining the market, and the sort of footfall that we have within Newport ourselves. So making people want to come into the city centre rather than going elsewhere. And then it's about how you market that offer more widely. But unfortunately, that it is not, you know, I don't want to seem pessimistic about this, because I am very optimistic, and I think, you know, Newport, the sort of inward migration that we see in as the city is really, really positive, and I think that is undoubtedly going to help. I also think, to flip this on its head, you know, we're human beings, we all like human contact, and we've probably all had enough of, you know, being in the situation we're in. So yes, of course, we need to be careful, we need to be sensible, but at some point, you know, when the vaccination programme reaches its final conclusion, and you know, we are all a lot safer, I think we will see a return. People will want to see, you know, will want to shop differently. They'll want to participate in face-to-face experiences differently. So I think it's about grasping that opportunity as it emerges, and making sure that Newport's got something that little bit different to offer that will, you know, entice people into the city centre to bolster the economy. And just come back to Guy's point, you know, we had a very productive conversation earlier this week with colleague Gwent and University of South Wales, and it is about how we grow that educational ecosystem within the city centre as well, to bolster the economy at different levels. So not easy, but I'm confident that with the partners we have on board and the strong working relationships we have in Newport, that you know, we can build on where we are now.
Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Chair, and thank you, Ben, for the answer. As with anything, I think on a personal comment, that moving forward, I think we need to give more experiences for people to come into the city centre, by all means. You know, the kind of chances of something different, something that's you wouldn't find behind the click of a mouse. And I think that would be something that we need to see where we can be big and bold. We've got it with the City of Culture, we've got great art, and I'm sure as partners, I would, in my comment, hope together you can come up with new creative ways that we can have locally with local knowledge in order to move that forward. So thank you.
Adding to what Councillor Marshall said there, I think he's right. I think sort of yeah, every city will be coming out of this and looking for what they can do, but I think sort of if we can be bolder and bigger, and yeah, we've got a chance, and I really appreciate Bev's answer there. I don't see any other hands up from any councillors. Anyone out there, any more questions before I sort of finish this part of the meeting? Okay. Okay, I'd just like to end this part of the meeting as a thank you for everyone coming on tonight. I don't know what time it is. It's near enough 6:30. And also, what I found really refreshing, you answered every question. Which isn't always the way. You know, sometimes, you know, you have to go back or come back to us, etc., etc. But tonight every question was answered, and it was answered, and you know, I'm feeling it. So I'm no fool not to think others aren't feeling it. You've gone through a lot. We've just gone through a lot, and there's a lot of weary and tired people out there, but the enthusiasm in this meeting and about the wellbeing plan and about the report, I thought was great this afternoon and evening. So massive thank you for all of you. We're not there yet. There'll be more questions next time, I imagine so. But for this moment, you have to remember moments. A massive thank you to all of you, and we do know the good job you're doing. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to leave the meeting, and we'll continue on with the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, are we all here, Neil?
Yep, thanks for that, Chair. So we're just now at the part of the meeting where we just make our recommendations and any comments that we would like to leave with the partners. So was you all happy with all the information contained within the report, and was there any additional information that you would like to get, or any other comments that you want to leave?
Neil, before they jump in, can I ask, feel free to put your cameras on. I think I'm talking to a blank screen here, so feel free to put your cameras on. Not yours, Councillor Marshall, I meant the others. I've seen too much of you tonight, but Yeah, feel free, Ray, Mark, all of you, put your cameras on if you want it. Hi, right. Sorry, Ray. Sorry. Also, your camera was on in the meeting, so sorry for the little message I had to put out there to turn it off. That's all. If you're talking, your mic's on. Ray, hear us, Ray? Ray, can you hear us? I think we've got communication with Ray. Ray, can you put a thumbs up if you can hear us?
I can hear you guys.
Yeah.
There's a real delay in this camera. It takes my thumb goes up. Well,
Hey, I said sorry for the message but your camera was on, so I didn't. Right, fine.
There's actually a 3-second delay in my video.
Right. Okay. Right. So anything to add, Steve? I'll let you lead on this because a lot of questions. Anything to add for Neil and just all of you jump in. It's all you jump in.
Thank you, Chair. So really feel positive from what was mentioned, obviously posing the open questions to them, first of all, about the partnership and making sure what's there. It does sound positive. The individual interventions seem to be networking really well. They seem healthy enough and checking their health on a regular basis, more so than the report kind of alluded to. One thing I would be interested in finding out a little bit more, if possible, is where they said about this new information about properties in the city centre and things like that there, if that maybe can be brought up, whether or not to the committee or to members, just the information that's happening. That would be really, really interesting, obviously, as part of that green agenda moving forward. But overall, I think, we can tell pretty much the closeness of the partners. They seem, able to answer each other's questions. They seem well rehearsed in what's happening together. And basically, it's positive to hear they're not afraid of challenges, being bold with things like the City of Culture and other things there, and working as partners together, and especially addressing the points raised, about the kind of COVID recovery, and the fact that their partnership has obviously been strengthened, what has been, pretty much the worst 18 months in our living history. So fair play, it sounds really, really positive there, and I'm sure colleagues will probably agree and comment probably similar to what I have. Just generally feel that it's really, really positive as the report shines through, but also you can feel that rather, not actually physically, but you can tell that virtually with the way it's coming through, over the computers there. Thank you.
I think you're right there, Steve. I think the only thing I would sort of add to that is it was, you read the document, there's a lot of positivity there, and that's just what you read. But there's a lot as well. There's still a bit of work to be done here. So it was a positive meeting and the partnerships are all great and they're all joined together, and I get that, but they've still got to get over a line on a lot of stuff. That's just a thing I'd just like to add in there. Sorry to be cheeky there. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'd like to say something, James. It's great to see the positivity. Absolutely agree with Stephen and the others. I think what we need as well is the openness to admit that there are issues, because if it was easy, as they say, anybody could do it. There are a lot of issues, and if you look at the public perception, and if you look at the goals of the well-being, that everybody is happy, you're not going to make everybody happy. I think we've got to address sometimes the real challenges, rather than sometimes I see in these meetings that people are completely optimistic and they feel they have to come to these meetings and project everything positive. And then I suppose that leaves us the challenge of digging out the issues that aren't exposed. But I'd like to give some feedback and say, well, it's okay to say there's issues, and perhaps there's the other things we should be doing. Do people agree with that or not?
I would agree, Ray, but I'd also mention, I don't know, the chair's nodding, I thought he was talking, sorry. But I think what the chair also mentioned earlier, and I think it's important to note, is about how much the residents actually know what's going on. And I think that's an important point to put forward as well, because you have to have the residents buy in as well as part of this. So we're moving forward. The partnership is not just the partnership board, it's the residents too of the city. It's everyone, basically from when you're born to when you die, it's everyone's kind of partnership within this as we're moving forward.
and we have to listen to the people of the city equally, because there are issues, you know. And but anyway, no, I think overall it was great.
Can I come in here, Chair, please?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. I agree. Yeah, it is a good report, and Ray is a bit right. I think that there may need to be the last page of the future of where they're looking to do things and where we may be struggling to do things and what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think you're right. It could be sort of like a warts and all sort of situation. It's, you know, it's all the rosy stuff, which again is great, absolutely fantastic. But you know, there has to be. But I suppose, and also I think sort of what Ray and Steve touched on. It's the public. You know, there's some stuff on there which is great, but is it out there, and is that the public's view? Is that what I don't know. It was as I said. You could argue, are we trying to find faults in something which came really well? But I think we're just being honest and open. The committee here, that there's other sides to it as well. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, you're right, Chair. The only fact we know of the partnerships is the fact that we sit on this committee, and other councillor colleagues would know it because obviously of papers and things of being in council. But if you were to say, in the general public about various things, it might be in the Pill ward, or it might be in the Gare ward, my own ward, or other wards. Did you know that the partners are working together? They'll probably just look at you like, what are you talking about? And that's the thing. It needs to be a bit more bolder and say, there is a strong partnership working together. These are the kind of things that we are doing for you, and they shouldn't be afraid to batten the drum of the successes as well as the faults or issues that arise, but they should be open and honest about it to bring people to get them to buy into this, in order to allow, some of this will be part of their views, so we want them to make sure that they are feeding into the process as well as we are as councillors, and I think that is very, very important.
Well, good example is actually what Vizina brought up about the flaring. He's like, great, it looks good, and what's there, and probably I would, but 9 out of 10 walking by probably think that's great, but where did it come from? Who put it there? And so yeah, I take on board exactly what you're saying. Neil, are we on the right track with what we said, just to keep us in line?
Oh no, that's fine. Everything's great. Thanks very much, councillors. I've also just included the comment that Councillor Spencer made about the armed forces, how it wasn't really mentioned in the last annual report, and it was requested that more information is there. So you're happy to see more of it in this report, and hopefully this will continue in future reports.
I tell you what, it was only a minute before, because I said to you, I vaguely went through that report before the last night, and it was only like a minute before the meet that you asked me to speak that I found it. So I was going to rip into him, but then I found it. Thankfully, it is a good lesson. Make sure you read everything before the meetings. Yeah.
I say also, maybe it's just myself and again, sorry if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's my workload outside the council, but it was quite a report to go through. It was quite a report to go through and find the time, and I don't know if that's just me and my frame of mind at the moment, but to go through it was, and to go through it thoroughly, I found quite challenging this time round.
I think it's also you can go through it, and there's some things you don't understand until people speak about it.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. But it's a thorough report. I actually enjoyed reading it.
Yeah.
Actually, the argument there, actually, Ray, would actually maybe it's more the time I've given it, because actually I would prefer a thorough report which takes time rather than a 10-page report which I can flip through but not get the so yeah, maybe that's just an individual point on this. Well,
we do expect you to work weekends, James.
If I do, so will you, I promise you.
I do work weekends.
Chair, I wonder with what Mark has just mentioned about the armed forces, because obviously with the Future and Wellbeing Act, I always get it wrong. So if that's the first time I have it right, great, but I always get it mixed up in order. But anyway, is the armed forces deemed as a vulnerable group as that? Because we look at young people, we look at NEETs, we look at various other groups. I'm just wondering, is the armed forces actually looked at when we have like council reports and things like that? It's slightly off point, but I think it's still important to ask whether or not that vulnerable group is taken into consideration as reports are written.
Neil, can you take that on board? Or Mark, would you know?
How can I answer that? The Armed Forces, the Armed Forces Forum within Wales, they have education officers, service children. It's all looked at thoroughly through the Welsh Government and through the Forum and through Newport City Council, yes.
So just to confirm, so from understanding, you know, when we receive reports, not just this one, others as well, because it's all part of the Future and Wellbeing, obviously, Act. Is armed forces, like former armed forces, veterans and things like that, taken into consideration as a vulnerable group as part of making reports for whatever the subject matter might be, but they are still reviewed as someone that might have a slightly difference from the normal average stakeholder kind of issues or wants or wills?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, yes. Yes.
Neil, have we covered?
It might be worth Neil asking the question.
Yeah, you can ask us,
I'll
be honest,
find
Neil.
out as council. I can take that back as well and find out and send out the answer.
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay, so have we covered all that off now, Neil?
I'd say it's pretty much sorted there. Thanks very much for those, councillor. I'll tidy those up and I'll send it to the partners.
Okay, so what have we got next? Is it dates or?
It's the annual forward work programme for the next 2 meetings, Chair. So just to advise.
Yeah, I don't know if you've all seen it. We've got the 3rd of November, I believe, and the 17th of November. Would that be correct, Neil?
That's right, Chair. So we've got the Norse Joint Venture Partnership coming. So coming to that meeting would be Tracy Brooks, the head of Regen. We've also got Lyndon Watkins, the managing director of Norse as well. And I'm pretty sure Dan Cook, the property manager for the Civic Centre, will also be attending. And this will be the first time it will be coming to committee. We'll also be having the EAS come in to discuss their value for money for 2020 to 21. This didn't come to committee last year because of the pandemic, but it came the year before, so there'll be lots of information to be discussed on that one. And then on the 17th of November, we got the unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. This is to consider the developments being undertaken with the partnership with Cardiff Council. So this is something which is new again. This will be the first time it will be coming to committee. And invited to this will be Sally Ann Jenkins, former head of Children's Services, and Natalie Poyner, the service manager.
Through the chair, can I go slightly back and just put in a note, if that's okay, Neil, and just thank the panel for all the work that they've done and the staff members and the teams during COVID especially, and for all the work they've done. I don't think that was noted, but just to put that forward, please. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Councillor Marshall, no problem at all.
Okay, so we've got the dates coming up. Obviously, work commitments to things like that, I totally understand. We're obviously missing a few people this evening, but they are 2 really important meetings coming up, especially, you know, we're both Norse, EAS and the asylum seeking children, you know, really, really important. So obviously, if you can make it, that's fine. Anything else to add, Neil?
No, it's just on page 103. It's just the action sheet for the committee. It's just to say of the actions which have been taking place. So for the formation of the Regional Public Services Board, we've sent the comments and recommendations to the partnership team, and also just that we agreed the forward work programme. So that's everything now, Chair.
Through the chair, can I ask Neil, is the EAS report the value for money one, just to clarify, sorry?
It is, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you.
It is, yeah, it is. And obviously, any paperwork for anything, then if we can get it as soon as we can to go through it, as I said, they're big meetings, so that would be much appreciated. Anyone else got anything to add?
Yes, I have, Chair. I'm looking forward to the day we can have face-to-face meetings at the Civic. Do you have any notion as to when that could happen?
Nothing specific. I'm sorry, Councillor Mogford. We're looking to doing some testing for hybrid meetings, so that will be where some members can be in the actual civic and some can join remotely. So we're us and the governance team and SRS, we're looking to do testing on that shortly. But in regards to actually bringing it out, I couldn't say. I'm not sure myself. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But we are looking to do some testing soon.
Same thing, Ray. We've got to be getting closer.
Absolutely.
We've got to be getting closer, but I suppose it's closeness and safeness, I suppose. But I know there's things going on in the background, but we're not there yet, right?
But we've got some very big rooms, you know, given the size of this committee and whatever, that, you know, you'd think that there would be, as you say, we're getting closer. I would just like to push for it. So when you get the opportunity, Chair, that you grasp it.
Oh, I will, Ray. Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So my question is, because of the suggestion I made at the beginning of the meeting or prior, just whether or not we can have maybe a pre-meeting of North, just to make sure that we have a scope that we're going down, because we don't want to have an all-in kind of thing, and whether or not there's specifics that we do wish to follow down, whether or not it's a very short meeting, but I think we just need to have a focus in that meeting, rather than just coming to the meeting and all thing, and we need to have a pre-planned one, if that makes sense.
I know you brought it up before. I think, Neil, because we've done that recently, didn't we? We had a pre-meeting before, but I think if you could do that, Neil, you know, it could be tight for time. It could be some of us can't make it, but whoever can make it can be quite a good guide on the Norse meeting when it actually happens, as it is
Especially,
the first. So if we could look at something like that, Neil, that would be great.
Especially because we've got the EAS meeting. Sorry, Neil.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor.
So I was saying, especially because we got the EAS meeting, so it's just hopefully to keep a focus on that meeting, because I'm assuming the value for money report is going to be quite extensive anyway. So it's just to make sure that we are using our time effectively. Thank you.
Of course, no problem at all. I'll have a word with Dan and let you all know as soon as possible.
Oh, well, I think it's now 6:45 on a Wednesday night. As much as I love you all, and it's great you're here. The meeting's over. Neil, can you stay on?
Yeah, sure, no problem, Chair.
I believe Felicity's been in the background as well. Thank you for everything, and for all the councillors. I think Ray's gone out. All of you, many thanks for turning up. Great question. This is a great committee. I'll see you on the 3rd.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone.
Right now.
No,